Serious, what is your darkest secret? Your stories are fascinating, heartbreaking and disturbing. Once, a lady ran up to me at a notoriously bad corner in town. I thought I knew her from around. As she ran and hugged immediately, she backed off and started babbling incoherently. She is one of the many mentally ill drug addicts of the area. A few minutes later, she does the same to a 50-ish-year-old guy. He gets very creepy with her, pushing her against a bus stop and stating in a dark, matter-of-fact manner, "You are coming home with me tonight." She is looking downward all the while, half in tears, mumbling, shaking her head violently while he gropes her. I am generally very disgusted by rape. An exchange student at my former school was violently raped in an alley. I had hyper-violent dreams of stumbling upon it happening, and violently beating the man to death for months afterwards, and was very drunk at the time. So, I start talking him. He yells at me a bunch, and I back down. Then he grabs her by the wrist and starts pulling her towards the alley. I am terrified, in tears, drunk, and very angry. She screams. I pull a whiskey bottle out of my bag, yell at him, and get hit in the face. I hit him back with the bottle. She runs. I hit him again and he falls. As he was on the ground, I hit him with the bottle repeatedly. The last time it broke over his face. Then I gave him one sloppy and intentional gash across his cheek area, maybe hitting his eye a bit. I ran away crying, then puked. This is the only time I have ever been in a fight, and I have become a bit afraid of myself because of it. I set my molester's house on fire. My autistic brother steals money from my parents' wallets. My parents know this, and despite that, my father will fork over money to him all the time. No discipline at all. Ticks me right off. So in retaliation, I take the money out of his wallet while he is sleeping and return it to my parents' wallets. That's some Robin Hood coup. When I was about 9, my dad got wrongly diagnosed with a couple different psychological disorders. His psychiatrist put him on loads of meds where I did not even feel like he was there anymore. He was on cloud 9 24/7. So, that leads to this. My dad remarried to my stepmom, who had 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. I was 9 at the time. My brothers were 5 and 13 and my sister was about 7. My oldest stepbrother regularly molested and raped my younger brother and sister. This problem carried into a lot of other things: rape, molestation between my 2 youngest siblings, as well as acting up. My little brother used to run around the house throwing poop. Yes, literally his own poop. He would do it as bad behavior, but would mainly do it when my oldest brother was chasing and trying to catch him. I did wake up in the middle of the night to him touching them, telling them to be quiet. To this day, I just remember the look on his face and in his eyes while in the moment. I will never forget it. He was eventually put in juvie. My stepmom used to make me sleep outside on the ground. If I fell asleep inside, she would wake me up, drag me by whatever limb she could hold onto and put me outside. No blankets, no pillow, nothing. 100 degrees or 25 degrees. Did not matter. I was often locked out of the house when my dad was gone to work also. The minute he left, my stepmom would just make my life living heck. Physical and emotional abuse were typical. I bring up the medication my dad was on because he was a damn good dad and my best friend. And in the right mind, he would have never allowed that. He eventually went to a different doctor, got on different meds and left her. But, damn, that poop was heck. I still remember the day it finally broke. My dad and stepmom were screaming at the top of their lungs and my dad told her that he was gonna leave her and told me to get my stuff. I jumped on the kitchen counter, got right in her face and screamed for you. I just posted about this on another comment here, and I thought I would make it my own separate reply. When people ask me about my siblings, I will first tell them that I have an older brother 8 years older and a younger sister 4 years younger. The full truth is, I once had another sister, Brittany. She was a year and a half younger than me. During my mother's pregnancy with my sister Brittany, a test showed that my sister may have had a birth defect, maybe Down syndrome. But the later test showed that everything seemed okay. Nobody suspected a thing, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary, until she was born. When she was born, They saw that she had a cleft lip and palate link. This was how they first noticed her problem. My sister had Edwards syndrome link. Edwards syndrome. A chromosomal birth disorder. Pretty much no one that has it makes it to adulthood. Someone with the disorder is lucky if you can call it that to survive a year. Wikipedia says 8% make it beyond 1 year. She lived a year, a month, and a day. In addition to her cleft lip and cleft palate, my sister was deaf and mentally retarded. She was unable to eat, and had to be fed through a feeding tube, which would make her cry and often throw up. Her head was somewhat large, relative to her body, and her muscles were not well developed, so she was never able to sit up by herself. Most babies are able to sit by around 8 months. They could not take her outside in the sun for very long. She would get red and irritated. We have a small photo album of her. Her face was a little odd, and she had pointy ears, but mostly she did not look that out of the ordinary. In a close-up, I can see that she had the same blue eyes as me and the rest of my family. There are a few photos of her lying down, with my dad holding her arms up. I am told that this is because one time, my mom was singing Wheels on the Bus and moving my sister's arms around. And when my mom held her arms up, my sister smiled and laughed. It was one of the only times that she ever appeared to be happy. So, in those photos, my dad was holding my sister's arms up, trying to get a picture of her smiling. No such luck. There are some photos of me and her. Remember, I was 2 years old. I used to sometimes pull up a chair to her crib and climb in with her, playing around, doing whatever it is 2-year-olds do. It seemed I loved her at least as much as a 2-year-old can love a younger sister. But I have absolutely no memory of her. Everything I know of her is secondhand, through my mother and those photos. And I have no idea how my sister's life and death may have affected me. Initially, my parents did not want to do the surgery to fix my sister's cleft palate. She could not have surgery anyway, until she was I think 10 pounds, because she would need anesthetic. So they had to at least wait until she was older. When she made it to 1 year old beyond anyone's expectations, my parents began to consider that my sister just might survive for a while. So they decided to go ahead with the surgery to fix her cleft palate. She did not wake up from the surgery. My mom says that it was likely for the best. My sister did not live a very pleasant life. And that is my story of my younger sister that I never knew. I have always looked after my little brother and have stepped in to fill the role my dad left behind. I am 26 and my brother is 15. One day my brother breaks down crying and I am thinking poop mom has cancer or a girl broke up with him. I ask him what's wrong and his response was that he wanted to be a girl. I laugh thinking he's pulling a prank like he does, well I might add. Smart ducker, but he keeps at it. Usually he will break and admit it, but he did not break this time. I was shocked and it felt surreal while we talked. We talked for a couple hours and I, loving my bro, was supportive and gave him information on being transgender. What information I knew anyways. He told me he hated pretending and wanted girls' clothes and all that jazz. Well, to wrap it up, whenever my brother comes to stay with me on weekends he wears girlish clothing and makeup. I always refer to him as her and he goes by Brittany. It weirds me out, but I see how much he enjoys being who he wants to be at my place. We still do the usual like video games and movies, but he stopped working out with me because he does not want to build muscle. So my little bro turns into Brittany on weekends and very much plays the role. His voice was pretty soft and gender neutral to begin with, but trying to play up being a girl it's dead on, though there are hints of my brother in some words he says. The worst thing about it is I never have the house to myself on weekends. He will always want to stay at my place because it's his favorite time and I can't break his heart by telling him no since he's pretty miserable during the week. My bro passes for a girl pretty well and I doubt most people would notice. I say he looks pretty as a girl, but if he starts taking hormones like he plans he should not have an issue. However, that all in the future, because our mom would probably flip as she found out A, he wants to be a girl, B, I knew, C, I helped him. I love my brother and consider myself his guardian. I tried to be supportive even though it's weird, I'm pretty conservative, but it's my bro, you know. One more thing to add. Took him to an amusement park this summer and he went as Brittany. He made the joke about people thinking we were on a date. It was not funny to me. The things I do for love. You are an awesome brother. He may seem a little too attached, but that is probably just because you were, I assume, the only person he can really be himself around. I occasionally pay hot girls to beat me up. You looked into any sub-dom dating sites. Find a dom and then it will be free. But will they be hot? Christ no. When I was very little, probably around 3-4, I used to play a game with my parents where I did go to the bathroom and brush my teeth before bed. And when I got to my room they did pretend to be asleep and I did find creative ways to wake them up. Being so young, I thought my dad was superhero style indestructible. And in thinking so, I decided to try something that would hurt a kid like me but would not harm him at all since he was big. I found a pencil laying on the desk and tried to stab him in the eye with it. Luckily, he was peeking and stopped me just before I did it. To this day it gives me a sinking feeling in my stomach, thinking about what might have happened. Too long didn't he read I almost stabbed my dad in the eye with a pencil while he was pretending to be asleep. Oh man, I have something similar. When I was about 15 years of age I had an obsession with bows and arrows, so my parents finally got me one and I paid for some arrows. I would go into the woods and shoot and things randomly, never living creatures though. Anyway, my parents and I were at my grandparents' cottage and my dad was showing me a compound bow. He helped me draw it back and told me to shoot at a pole. My mum was nearby, back turned, and I, very jokingly, aimed the arrow at her. My dad spun me in another direction, so ducking fast, slapped me, took away the bow and flipped out. My mum did not even know what happened. Holy poop. I could have killed my mom. Thank goodness for parents who supervise their children's use of weapons. Okay. So typical sexually abused as child thing. My parents divorced and I was put into foster care, spanning either a year or a few months. Kind of blocked out. I was about 8. This older kid named Richie was 14-ish and a perfect example of a sexual sadist. Lots of ducked up stuff. Got handcuffed by him and held hostage until I yelled out for my foster mom. Beaten. My head stood on once. Sexually abused. Forced to commit both violent and sexual acts on the other younger foster kids in the home. Subtle and manipulative death threats. Yeah, no. Regular sadist stuff. Anyway, given that I did say I could be doing a lot worse, but I worry sometimes. I have had multiple dreams in which sexually sadistic themes abound: bloodied female bodies, women dying in the same way, that is, being suffocated by a penis during oral intercourse. In the dreams it is never me doing it, I'm always witnessing the act. In one of them someone was trying to do this to my current girlfriend and I murdered him via decapitation. I occasionally wake up and I'm like, rapidly aroused. My girlfriend will tell me of events that I do not remember. Me waking up and starting to have sex with her until she tells me no and I go back to sleep. Anyway, it is troublesome to have sexuality and violence seem so closely linked in my subconscious. Please tell me you have spoken to the authorities about these monsters and be seeking help for these dreams. Do not remember his last name. Do not really know the full names of the foster parents. I was 8 and as soon as she could my mom got me and my siblings out of that situation they were in. Different houses and moved across the country. I got nerve damage masturbating once. Ugh. So basically I was ducking my bed while half asleep because my sheets are very soft. There had not been much room in my nutsack for a while and a ball sort of got caught upwards, and I guess what happened was I grinded the ball into my bed. It ached for 2.5 months. Doctors said I was healthy as duck and not to worry. After getting a billion tests caused, I was worried it was something bad. Went to a strip club one night unwillingly. It was my second time at one of these establishments also. It was a few days before payday. I was almost broke. Went with a bunch of people I did not know. Girls coming and going, giving me a table dance and flirting hard. The more I drank the more turned on I was. One girl come up and say 50 gets you in the back with me. I go in the back and she instantly takes my pants off, throws a condom on me and we're having sex. After everything is said and done she asked for more money. Not saying anything about to charge before the fact. Next thing I know I am in a chair in the main room with 2 bouncers and the manager saying they're gonna break both my arms and throw me in jail if I did not get 300 now. Out of all people I call my boss at the time. He shows up, pays the girl. Everything is settled and he ends up getting a dance. Very few people know this. I have yet to go back to another strip club nor want to. I was 21 at the time it happened. Just days before my 22nd birthday. After a night of drinking with her, I had sex with my girlfriend's mother while she daughter was away at camp. I was 17. She was 38. Married. And Mormon. I love my husband, but he does not love me. After 5 years of problems, it finally clicked. He loves having a wife. He loves not being alone. He loves our kids. Capital I. However, I'm incidental. I cannot afford to leave him, and I do not really want to because of the kids. We do not hate each other by any means, but I basically have a roommate that I raise kids with. But they are friends and family. We're the perfect, super duper happy nerd family. I stole my stepfather's 9mm Glock. Made sure it was loaded. Put it in my mouth. And pulled the trigger. Had no idea that he had taken out the firing pin. In case one of us kids got a hold of it. My reason for doing it was his molestation of me from the time I was 14 to the time I was 17. I tried telling my mother. But she did not believe me. Said I needed to be institutionalized for saying such a horrible thing about such a good dad. So, I thought that she did not love me. He loved me in the wrong ways. And everyone at school hated me. So why the heck was I taking up hair? I am better now. But some mornings, I still hear him creeping up the stairs. I live in a completely different town. With a loving boyfriend. But it is so damn difficult to just let go.